second question is, what scripture should you reference when discussing the topic of transgenderism?
So a very good question. I first would turn to Genesis 1:27, and the reason why is because the fact that God has a perfect design for men and women. And it says this in Genesis 1:27, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. I think when you get to the topic of transgenderism and this idea of people, of gender and their gender identity being fluid, they can kind of choose, who they want to be and what they want to be. The reality is that God's already determined who they are, and it's no accident, and that God's design is perfect. And so I think just starting out, I think there are a lot of things to the topic of transgenderism in the sense that people would probably say, okay, well, yes, I agree that it may be male and female, but I, as a male, want to identify as a female. That's probably the next thing that they would follow up with is, okay, that's fine, but I identify as a female, even though I'm a male. And I would go back and say that God made no mistake in creating you, creating a person as a male or creating a person as a female. And this natural inclination or desire to be something else that goes against God's design is nothing more than a sinful desire that we all have a natural inclination to in the sense of we all have a sinful nature. So I would tell them that even though it may seem natural, was what they might say, it's not natural. To go against what God has designed and what God has created is sin, and it has physical consequences that are devastating, but also spiritual consequences that are devastating even into eternity, which is even more important. So my answer to that question, first off, is I'd begin with God's creation in the book of Genesis 1:27.
And yeah, I think I would go to the same place. I would go to Genesis, and I too would show them God's original intent and how that has not changed. God created man, male and female, and we also see the first marriage there between a man and a woman, which is God's design. Yep. Those who think that they have the right to choose their identity, which is against God's creation, or for those who think that they have been born a different gender than what is actually shown physically, like someone who's born with male genitalia, but they believe that they were born a female in a male's body. I would say that there are people who genuinely believe that. But it all goes back to the Garden of Eden. When Satan tempted Eve, he tempted her to doubt God, and he tempted her to think that God did not have her best interest at heart. And it's no different today. The enemy is still doing the same thing. He is still tempting people to doubt God, and he's tempting people to doubt God has their best interest at heart. Yeah. So when God creates someone with male genitalia or female genitalia, he is creating them biologically to be male or female. That is their identity. Of course, the enemy is going to cast doubt, and the enemy is going to cause a person to try to doubt that how they were born is God's design for them. And so they'll begin to doubt God or question God. But this all goes back to, again, what Paul teaches in Romans chapter 1. Yep. God has made it known through conscience and through creation, but yet man chooses to suppress the truth. What they know to be true, they suppress, and then eventually they give themselves over, women with women, men with men, to what the Bible refers to as unnatural desires. Why? Because God did not create a man to identify as a woman, and he did not create a woman to identify as a man. These are all forms of sexual immorality that God condemns in Scripture. Yeah. And so, again, thank you for your question.